Hey everyone, it's Karen Miller from Redbird Quilt Co. and Karen's Quilts, Crows, and Cardinals blog. I have a great little tutorial to show you today. You can find all of the details in the baseline for this tutorial on the Moda Bake shop. It's a Valentine tutorial where basically we just put a Valentine on a background fabric and we just do some free motion quilting. This is an idea of what we're going to be working on. I just want to show you real quick the game plan. I'm just going to stitch right through this. I'm going to put echo stitching around the heart, one row of echo stitching, and then another row of echo stitching about 3/8 inch away from the first row. We're going to lay some pebbles or circles, a string of pearls in that channel. Then we're going to do another row of echo stitching, add some feathers, do 3 more rounds of echo stitching, and then some matchstick quilting. We're going to try to get that all done in this video. I'm not going to be stopping too much, but I will try to talk a little bit throughout it. When we're all done, we're going to do a little bit of quilting inside the heart to just knock down that fabric a little bit. So that is what we're up to. All of those details in excruciating detail is out on the modabakeshop.com. You can also find that link from my blog, Karen's Quilts, Crows, and Cardinals blog. So I have RFL 40 weight thread in the top and 50 in the bottom. I've already brought my bobbin thread to the top and taken a couple of lock stitches to knot my stitches, and I'm going to just echo stitch right around the edge of this heart. It doesn't really matter how close you get to the heart. You don't want to be too far away, but go ahead and just stitch all the way around the heart. Take your time. Hug it as close as you can, but if you're off a little bit, don't worry. There's no right or wrong here. The way my foot is hopping, it seems like I've got to lower it just a little bit, so I'm lowering my foot. So I went around from the bottom to the top, and now I'm going to come back around to the bottom. I've got a nice little rounded foot on my machine that I can see pretty good visibility with. So that's working out really well. I'm going to get back to the bottom. When I get back to the bottom, I'm just going to take a couple of lock stitches in place, lift my needle and my foot. I'm going to jump away so that when I stitch again, I'm going to be roughly 3/8 of an inch away from my last stitch. I'm going to take a couple stitches in place, and now I'm going to echo all over again. Here we go. This is just going to be pretty straightforward. Echoing again. It's always a good idea when you first start stitching to stop and check your backing to make sure you like the tension that you're seeing on the back of your quilt. I'm not going to do that right now, but it is a good practice to get in the habit of. Just to make sure your tension is good and that you don't have nasty tension on the back. Okay, now we're back to where we started from. We've got a nice channel that goes all the way around the outside of the heart. Now I'm going to lay in some circles or some pebbles. I've got detailed instructions for how I stitch this on the tutorial on the Moda Bake shop, but I just wanted you to get a feel for the way I move my hands. Now I have a different slightly pinkish bobbin in with a 50 weight thread, and I can see it coming through just a little bit, so I'm going to decrease my tension. That means I'm going to go from a 5 on my machine right now down to about a 4.5. I actually was part of the design element to see a little bit of that pink stitch, just to give a little bit of color. But you don't want to see too much of it. You don't want it to look like it's a fault or an error. I'm going to go down just a little bit more with my tension. So you can see the way I do these circles. I go all the way around the circle, and then I backtrack on that same circle to where I can start a new circle. So the detail instruction again is in the Moda Bake shop. I'm going to keep on stitching so we can get all these circles in the video, making a beautiful string of pearls around the outside of the heart. Something to think about as you're holding your fabric is you don't want your fabric to be bunching up on you. You want it to be nice and taut while you go. So if it's getting like folds in it while you're moving it, you might need to move your hands a little closer. Alright, now as I get down towards this point here, I want to make sure that I can put about the same size pebbles in there. Sometimes I'll stop and plan. how I'm going to lay them in. It looks like in that large diagonal gap I'm going to have to put more than one circle. So I'll kind of set up for that. I'm going to do a circle halfway, one down into the point, and then one starting into the channel again. Alright, now I'm going to go up the other side. I'm just going to go all the way around this heart with these pebbles. And you can see how I make them. I hope I'm just making a full circle. Then I'm backtracking on that circle to the next position where I want to start another circle. You see how that happens? Alright, I'm going to keep stitching. Try to stay in the channel if you can. If you go outside of it though, no worries. Just keep going. The whole unit, when it's done, will look just beautiful. So don't get too hung up on perfection here. The whole objective is to try to stitch something out, get used to a new motif, get some practice under your belt, and try something new. So I'm going to keep going. We're coming down the home stretch here. I see my circles are going outside of my channel just a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about it. My channel changes sizes too, which again, I'm not going to worry about. This is not perfection, this is about learning. I have a nice rounded foot on my machine. I really love working with a rounded foot because it helps me envision well-rounded motifs. So if you're doing a lot of rounded motifs, a rounded foot is really helpful. This is one that came with my machine. Okay, I'm almost nearing the end here, so again, I just want to make sure I don't have a really huge pebble when I'm done or a really small one. So sometimes I'll just stop and look at how many I can fit in there. All done with the pebbles. The string of pearls is all the way around the outside. Now I'm going to take a couple stitches in place. And I'm going to do what I call jumping. I'm just going to lift my foot, move out. I'm only moving out like maybe 1/8 of an inch. This is just another tight little echo that we're going to do. Put my foot back down, couple stitches in place. Again, the objective here is I'm just going to echo one more round, and that echo is going to become a spine for the feather quilting that we're going to do next. So okay, I got my hands positioned. Let's see, let's echo one more time, about 1/8 of an inch away from your last echo, or the outside of that channel that you just created. I gotta stop and move my hands. Make sure you always stop with your needle in the down position because that keeps your fabric from moving when you reposition your hands. I'm stopping on the diagonal line. The reference marks are all outlined in the tutorial on the Moda Bake shop. You can see them, all the detail there about how big you cut your quilt sandwich, what reference marks you need to put on it, what needle and thread I recommend, and all of that. Now I'm twisting this around for you to be able to see it and for me to be able to see it. And actually on this small quilt sandwich, because we can twist it around. So, yay. Alright, I'm back to where I started. I've done an echo, another echo about 3/8 of an inch away. I put pearls in there, or circles or pebbles, and then I did one more echo. Now I'm going to lock my stitches here, although I don't really need to because my motif is going to continue. We're going to do these feathers next around here. To give my feathers a base though, what I'm going to do is stitch a little orange peel design. I'm going to go just a gentle curve out away from the diagonal line. I'm targeting out here at this 2-inch mark that we marked, but I don't have to hit it. So I'm going to go down to the diagonal and then I'm going to go back again. And I put a nice little orange peel design in there. That's going to become the base of my feathers. Now I'm going to go ahead and lay feathers, which again, the detailed tutorial is on the bake shop. Sorry for keep moving that quilt sandwich. I'm going to try to find what works best so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm at this implied spine, which is my last round of echoes. I'm going to lay a paisley or a teardrop in here, backtrack it, and then lay a second one in. Again, here all the details are on the bake shop. Here I go. I'm going to put a teardrop down here, bump into my base, that orange peel that I made. I'm going to backtrack on that same line to a point where I feel I can start my second feather plume. Put a nice rounded edge on it and then take it all the way back to the spine. I know you can't see the thread. I apologize. I wanted you to see how I'm managing the quilt top. you can see all the detail on the Moda Bake shop post. Now I'm just going to up my tension just a little bit more here. Okay, now I'm going to just lay the two-step dance. I'm going to lay feathers all the way up this side. I'm targeting out toward this 2-inch mark that I made, but I'm not going over it, and I don't even have to hit it. What I do want to do is make nice rounded plumes that come out and then go all the way back to that implied spine. I'm going to keep going up this side, making nice rounded plumes, backtracking, going all the way back to the spine. As I approach a pin, I'm going to take it out. So I just took a pin out. The other thing is when I'm approaching a curve or a corner like this, I want to make my plumes a little bit larger to fill the corner. I'm going to go out, make a rounded plume, backtrack on that plume, and then lay another one in. Go all the way back to the spine. Okay, now I'm going to want to fill this corner spine, so I'm going to come up and reach all the way into that corner. Well, as close as I can. Whoops, I set my machine speed down. It's a little slow. Backtrack. And go back all the way back to the spine. Make sure you take your feathers all the way back to the spine. Okay. I'm going to go ahead. Now when we round this bend here, I don't want to go over this 2-inch mark. I want to make some pretty small pebbles in there. I'm going to get rid of this pearls in there. Of some feather plumes. Always trace that spine, rounded plume, backtrack, back to the spine. This is going to be a small little plume. Make it rounded, backtrack, take it back to the spine. Another really small plume, and keep going here. Backtrack and back to the spine. Here we go. Now I got a little bit more space. We can make this a little bigger. Okay, so now we're coming into this wider top of the heart. I'm going to keep laying some feathers in here. I'm going to make rounded ends, backtrack, and back to the spine. At this point, I'm thinking I don't want to throw another feather in here. I'm going to, as I put in the tutorial, just throw a little circular design in here, a little swirl. We're going to come up in here. We're going to act like we're doing a feather, but we're going to just do a little swirl instead, and then backtrack it all the way back to the spine. Now this becomes a new spine for me so that I can lay feathers the opposite direction and fill this gap. So I'm going to twist this around. I'm going to come down and do another swirl to balance that design. Right down into that corner of that heart, swirl it around, come back, and now I just want to lay a couple of feathers in there using that top swirl as my spine. Just do a bump back. I'm going to bump into this one, come back, put another swirl in, and then just do a plume, and then a whole new plume. You're going to target not going over this. You don't want to go over the diagonal line if you can avoid it, okay? So look at that. We've got this side done with feathers. I am going to sneak all the way down the spine, back to the bottom of my heart, where I'm going to start round number 2 on the feathers. All the way, I'm just stitching down the spine. All right, so we're going to do exactly what I just did on the right side, only we're going to do it on the left. I'm going to move this pin out of the way in the interest of time. Going to go ahead and lay my first plume in there. I'm going to bump into my base, backtrack to a point where I can start my next plume, take it all the way back to the spine. I'm going to just keep doing that. Here we go. I'm going to make a plume. I'm going to bump into the previous one, backtrack on the line to a point where I can make another plume, take it all the way back to the spine. And I'm just going to keep doing that motion, that 2-step dance over and over again. Make a plume, backtrack to a point where I can start another plume, take that plume all the way back to the spine. I am not counting how many feathers I have left and right. I'm just making it look nice to my eye. Now here I got a little bit of I want to reach into this corner a little bit on my backtrack feather. That's always fun. And it worked out okay. Don't be too hard on yourself, especially when you're learning. Alright? And then again, I'm not worrying about my stitch length too much. I'm just stitching to learn and to get exposure to this process. Alright, I'm getting in this tight little area where I don't have a lot of space. I'm going to throw some small plumes in there, take them back to the spine. Okay? I have Aurifil 40 weight on the top here, and it's just a beautiful heavier weight thread. It has some really pretty sheen to it. I'm going to go down one more time here. Okay, and now I'm going to do one more swirl here in the corner. Let me just get this swirl in here. And then back. Then we're going to lay in those two feathers. Oh, I'm sorry, I need a swirl in the bottom down at the point. Back. Now we're going to lay some, use this top swirl as our spine, and throw a feather in here, backtrack it, and then one tiny little room for a feather down here. Okay, I'm going to backtrack down to the bottom so I can get on to the next step. I'm just going to echo this 3 times. All I'm going to do. I'm going to echo now these feathers 3 times.